Hey, everybody, grab your goat, grab a drink, a big one, and get ready to cringe because it is time for Witches Movie Coven. We have a very special movie for you today. We have the blood orgy of the she-devils. We'll get more into that later, but be prepared to cover your eyes on occasion, or ears, or anything you've got. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from Ghost Adventures or from the Witching Hour or from conventions across the world or from my goats and being right here with my favorite coven of all, the Witches Movie Coven. Let me introduce you, or let me pass you on to my co-host, starting with the lovely Courtney.
That's me, Courtney Buckley. I am Ghost Bait on Scared and Alone. I have come prepared tonight to have a lot of opinions, obviously. But today, if I can, just real quick, is a very special day for me and my family. It is World Autism Acceptance Day. So I would just like to specifically, if I may, wish Nathan a happy World Autism Acceptance Day because it is one of his favorite days. And I love that. So if you want any more information, there's a link down there that is for autistic people by autistic people. So there's some really great information there, and check it out. And we love it. Big part of our lives.
Thank you. And moving on to Richard-Lael.
I am Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were Richard, I would be a. That's right. I am known as the gentleman psychic. I'm a psychic and medium. I used to be a psychic in a small, but I gained some weight. But I'm working on that because I joined the gym. Yes. And you can find me on some Ghost Adventures. You can find me at University of Magic. I am so easy to find. And tonight I have Black Phillip. I have Philip. And I have my screwdriver.
Oh.
It's not a Phillips screwdriver, but it's a screwdriver.
Perfection. Thank you. I think, well, I hope you brought enough to share. Please. Moving on. With the golden locks sitting next to me, the wonderful Jason Mankey.
I'm Jason Mankey, whiskey enthusiast, and boy, did I need whiskey for this film. This is my latest book, High Priest, a biography of Raymond Buckland, that will be out in another month. Yay. So happy to be here with our whole coven. It feels like it's been forever.
It does. And moving on, and last and never, ever least, Heather Greene. The amazing.
Hi, I am Heather Greene, and I am the author of this. Black Phillip needs to get out of the way. Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, A Critical History of Witches in American Film and Television. And tonight's movie is in my book. Yes, it is, believe it or not. And I am also an author. I'm also a journalist. I cover occult as well as an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide. And I'm glad to be back here with all of us together to talk about this wonderful, amazing movie that we're going to enjoy.
Exactly. We're hoping you all watched it and hope you all watched the right one. And just in case somebody didn't watch it, Richard-Lael, do you happen to have an unbiased synopsis of this lovely
And how?
Seatbelt yourself in now.
So here is my take. It's an all-girl school, which is headed over by Supreme Witch Mrs. Garrett. And in this girls' school of witches, there is, of course, the rich blonde one named Blair. There is the black one named Tootie. And then there is a lesbian named Jo. And you take the good and you take the bad. And then these are, I guess, the facts of life, I suppose. That's what it kind of reminds me of. I mean, what is the plot of this film? I have debated all day long. I initially decided that I was going to get on and just recite a recipe because at least a recipe makes sense. But I really don't know what to tell you. If you haven't seen tonight's film, the best thing I can tell you is just watch it, because I don't know what to actually tell you on tonight's film. Apparently, there's a witch who kills people indiscriminately. Why does she kill men? I don't know. She's the she-man woman, man-hater. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's this religious fellow who is an atheist. And then the witches call upon Adonai, the tetragrammaton, that is God, to summon demons. And then Grand Witch turns into a black cat, and then eventually into a bat when everyone is dead because the atheist has telekinesis or something. That's about all I got out of it.
I think you summed it up well. This
Very-
is the most nonsensical film we have ever watched in this movie, Coven.
Completely. I my head was tilted the entire time. But thank you for that very good, very clear synopsis. But just in case somebody wants a little more information, and we do hear it's in our book, Heather, do you have 5 things we really, really need to know about this film?
Well, yes, I can definitely find 5 things to know about this film. The movie, we'll talk about that. The director, and then what exactly is exploitation? And then number 4, context and themes for number 5. So first, the movie. This is, if you didn't guess, a very low budget film.
Never.
You never would have guessed that. And it released in 1973 by Occult Films. This was created by Ted Michaels, and it's about 73 minutes long, which I'm sure Jason is going to think is 73 minutes too long, or maybe 74 minutes too long. It was interestingly re-released finally to video. It took this long in 1988. That was a very long amount of time for a movie to be released to video at this time, day and age. But it took that until 1988. But it had a new title. And I want everyone to sit still for this. Are you ready? As if the title of this film wasn't good enough, it was re-released as The Female Plasma Suckers.
Am I missing something in the movie?
I think I'm just gonna end my 5 things right on that one. I should have saved that to the end, because that just takes the cake. Because the best part of this movie is the title, and if that wasn't good enough, its second title is even better. Female Plasma Suckers. So let's move on to the director, Ted Michaels, known as the Trash King, although he does not like that title. His other films that he is known for are Astro Zombies and Corpse Grinder. There it is. That's the Female Plasma Sucker video cover.
Wow.
Which has nothing to do with the film.
Right.
Back to the director, born in 1929. He died in 2016. He came from, his family was from Eastern Europe. He was raised in Minnesota, and his mother was an herbalist. So those are some interesting things about him. He got into film, was very interested, and I read some interviews with him. He really loved what he did, and he was pretty well known in Hollywood, did lots of different things. Of course, he loved making these B, C, D, Z level movies. He also did allegedly say, but I do believe it is honest, that he did a lot of research on witchcraft and the occult before doing it. And you can see that in this film. As great as this film is, you can see that he was plucking things here and there from various random books that he read and putting them together into whatever he created. He wrote the script in exactly 5 weeks, I think it was. 5 days. No, he wrote the script in 5 days, and he after research. And of course, I'll get to that research in a second with context. So this was the 1970s. So now I'm going to go into the story that kind of introduces this whole thing. So during this period of time, you've heard me tell you before, this is when the production code of old Hollywood disappeared. Hollywood realized it was not able to sell tickets anymore to the changing audience, so they got rid of their antiquated code and came up with the rating system that we know today. That happened in the late 60s, 68 or 69 is when it went away. And then we went to the rating system. When that happened, all of the regulations and all the censorship was gone. So, like I say, when I do talks about this, all hell broke loose. And when we talk about witch films, that's actually quite
What
literal.
films?
Which films? Okay. Okay, that's I'm gonna have to start hexing. So anyway, all of these occult films, all subject that was regulated before, was not allowed, suddenly burst out all over the film world, into the film world. And so we wound up with something called exploitation films. There's exploitation films of various subjects throughout this time, this early 70s, late 60s. You have blaxploitation, that's a genre. You have sexploitation, that's a genre which turned into the porn industry. You have all kinds of, and exploitation films basically are largely B or worse films. They exploit some concept or theme that is usually controversial to some degree. And in the case of these films, of course, it's witchcraft. Now, of course, number 4, witchploitation. That's what I call it, is because we had a rash of this. Now, what happened was, why did we have a rash of witchploitation films in the early 70s? Couple reasons. One, success of Rosemary's Baby, which was really the last of the witchcraft films that was made underneath the code. So they pretty much told the code people they can pound sand, they're doing whatever they want. The code went away, and all of a sudden the success of Rosemary's Baby led to just hundreds, or I don't know if it's hundreds, I'm exaggerating, perhaps lots of witchcraft occult related films through the early 70s and then petering out into the late 70s. We've watched some of those. Also, because at the very same time as all this was happening, modern witchcraft, the stuff that we practice, was finally coming out of the shadows and really launched itself into the public eye, whether it was Buckley, which Jason can talk about in detail, or whether who actually was involved in some of these films, or he tried anyway several times, and he was involved. Or whether it was Paul Huston's book, which is often cited in these films, or whether it was actually Anton LaVey, who was actually present in Hollywood, and a lot of people were interacting with his work, or anything else was available, zines or anything. All this material was available. That's probably what the director was pulling from when you look at the mishmash of stuff that he was using in this film, all lumped together. People were interested in the occult, in the new age, in all kinds of spiritual stuff, and he just like took it all in because it was all available finally. So you have this mishmash of cultural revolution, the emergence of the witchcraft community in modern day, as well as the end of censorship. People were loving it, and that's how this lands. And of course, we have a rash, and I'm just going to read you some titles. We already looked at Necromancy and Hungry Wives. We also have, and we have some pictures of some of the movies. I'm going to read them out. We have, let's see, Crowhaven Farm. We have Psyched by the 40 Witch, which is actually I've never seen, but is on the pornographic side apparently. Warlock Moon. Blood Sabbath. I'm just going to read them out. As a Mark of the Witch, that one is really interesting. Sex Rituals of the Occult, that one is very hard to find. I have not seen it. Adults only, please. And we also have a bunch of other ones. The Brotherhood of Satan, The Daughters of Satan. We have that one with Tom Selleck.
Ooh.
Yeah, you got to watch that one. Simon, King of the Witches, that's one of the more unusual ones. The Witchmaker, pretty interesting. Satan's School for Girls, I think we talked about that one here too. There's a whole bunch of them, and then the pretty much The Witch Who Came from the Sea.
No.
Yeah, that's in here too. And these go on into the mid 70s and then start to go off, and then you wind up having Carrie, which is our late 1976. We have a number of teenage ones, and then it's pretty much the end. But that's pretty much what we're talking about here. And I just wanted to highlight some themes in some of these that you can see in this movie, which are kind of interesting. First of all, obviously, the presence of recognizable aspects of New Age practice, spiritual practice, and witchcraft practice put together like a hodgepodge, right? So you have that. You see that in a lot of these films. You also often have in these films some innocent people who find a coven or a community of witches. Like the area is infected with evil stuff, and you see that in Rosemary's Baby. You see the necromancy, etc. You also often have young girls half naked. They dance quite frequently as well, and also a middle-aged woman who's very often is not wearing a shirt. But this case, she was wearing a shirt most of the time. But you have that. It's very common. They either like to kill or harm or disable somehow a young man. That's a very common theme. You have that here. Or in the case of Rosemary's Baby, it's a couple. Sometimes you have the witches are dead witches from 200, 300 years ago. That's not the case here. That's the case in the Tom Selleck movie. You often have a professor, and you see that in later movies too, a professor who is schooled and knowledgeable about all things occult or the powers of the mind. You often have that as another theme here. And you can see some of the language he's pulling. Visago, very commonly used in the 70s, the demon, the Key of Solomon, spiritual guides, psychometry, the using words like karma, meditation. You can hear the 1960s New Age in the language he's pulling in here. So it's kind of interesting. I think this one is very, very much a replica. It's very much common for these type of films. So that's what you need to know about this movie. And now we can hear the opinions of how much everybody enjoyed themselves, and can't wait to see the sequel and the musical.
Exactly.
Right,
musical.
Courtney?
I
Right?
would watch the musical.
We could write the musical, Courtney.
Oh, I'm in.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you after the show.
Perfect.
All right. Does anybody specifically want to go first?
Patti does.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I really did watch the whole thing, head tilted, mouth open, going, this is truly one of the not great, is worst move I've ever seen. I'm sadly, it's just a little bit enough before my time, or otherwise I might have been in this film.
Dodged a bullet. Dodged a bullet.
I dodged a bullet. But I could not get past the costuming, and just that early 70s look that could have held me if nothing else. Was they worked hard on those outfits. I mean, I really think they do. Not that they had a real costume designer, but just because it's low budget, do you have to have such bad makeup? I mean, cheekbones, a black stripe on this evil woman. I wanted to go up on the screen and just give her a little shading all the way. So it's like, you could kill people so easily, but the makeup along the way. I love the horrible dancing. I love the horrible girls who didn't know what they were doing. I loved hating this entire thing, but I should have taken notes, because there was just so much hitting me from all sides with each of the characters, with each of the non-plot line. And I didn't, but I didn't. I don't even know what to say. Somebody go first, and then I will jump in.
I have some things to say.
Please.
I will say that the costuming did bother me, but only when they're claiming to be Salem, and witches were burnt in Salem. I know Courtney's going to talk about that. And you could even see the last time you died. And when did she die? Like a year before? Because are these Puritan costumes? No, these are 1970 costumes. Like, she's the same woman. Did she die literally 1 year before this? Because that was why I just kept looking, and I went, a little effort. I mean, you could have put on a buckle on your hat or something and been a little bit more period. I mean, and then what is with all of the fat naked men? I watched this film hoping for T&A, or as we like to say, boobs and butts, and the only boobs I saw were on shirtless fat men.
That's very unusual for these films. Very unusual. Usually there's lots of boobs and butts. I was very surprised. I had forgotten that.
Yeah, no.
They didn't get the memo.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. The costuming, when they went back in time, they were in early 70s clothes. But when they're wearing the date people just crap me up. Their hair, their makeup, those were the magazines I was watching when I was younger than that, but watching them, those crazy reading teen magazine. I was already reading teen magazine, and it was just, we've lost Richard-Lael.
Okay, I can't hold it in anymore, so I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I was able to separate myself. First of all, I had never seen this movie before, obviously. I was very excited because I feel like, Heather, you brought this up once before, and just the title of it alone made me thrilled. I was very excited to watch it. I was very excited that it was only 73 minutes because I felt like that was an appropriate time length for my attention span. However, I was expecting to have references to Salem and burning and whatever, and then be enraged by it. And somehow, I think because of the costuming in that one scene, I was able to separate myself from it because I was like, this can't be Salem. Like, this can't even be remotely pretending to be Salem because they're literally in the same clothes they were in 4 minutes ago. So I did not have to be upset about it. I said, yeah, they did burn people. They absolutely did burn people at the stake for being witches. Not in Salem, but that's not what they're saying here because it can't be. It's Milwaukee in 1970. I don't know, wherever it was, but that's what it was. I agree with Richard-Lael's synopsis in the fact that I have no idea what happened for the entire time, and I was attending, and it was hard, but I was attending the whole time. I will also say, and this may come as a shock, this movie has gifted me one of my favorite scenes in all of movies, which is when it was the Salem one, whatever, and they were like, stone the witch, and then they throw her on the ground and she's screaming like a banshee, and they're throwing rocks at her, right? And then she's screaming, oh my god, I can't even talk about it, it's so funny. And one of the rocks, the big rocks, just smacks her right in the face. And she is like, ah! And then they keep hitting her in the face with the rocks, and they're clearly not rocks. They're clearly like styrofoam. They're like bouncing off of her face. I rewound it, and that's why I was late. That's why, because I was so busy rewinding and watching the rock throwing scene over and over and over again. No idea what happened in the rest of the movie. All I know is that I laughed until I cried watching the rocks bounce off of her face. That's where I'm at.
I was watching this, and in some ways it reminded me of a sketch comedy show, or perhaps a movie that is basically a series of sketches like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because something would happen and then they would go and do something else that was completely not connected to anything else. And it was like the guy who wrote this was, I want to put this in my movie, and I want to put this in my movie, and I want to put this in my movie. And I have no care in the world whether or not it actually all goes together. Like, oh, I need to have a seance in the movie. So now all of a sudden the woman is a spiritualist who's the witch and doing seances. And then I need to show people coming back from the dead, I guess, because people get shot and then turn into a cat. And then she resurrects her henchman from the dead, and he's a zombie, and then he seems okay later in the film, and nobody seems to care. But that's what it reminded me of. It was just like these little hits of ideas and stories that didn't fit at all. And there were times, this movie's terrible, and I don't recommend anybody watch it, but I did laugh a lot because there were just so many moments where it's so bad. You can't help but laugh. Like the end of the movie, the house has a purple haze on top of it or something, and then they want to stop the evil. I love these rays of like beautiful light coming down on me. Do you see that in the picture? Like I'm majestic tonight. And then like the guys out, the old white guys outside are like doing this, and then they make everything stop because I guess that's what old white guys do, even in the 70s. It was just such a weird film.
Weird. Oh, you remind me of the seance. Richard-Lael, we could get some nice seance tips from this for both of us. And the squaw woman. Yeah.
Well, and that was what made me laugh too, was she says, I contact my Indian spirit guide. And I thought, okay, she means Indian, as in from India.
Right.
And his name is Titiwana or Tikiwana or whatever it was, which is not a Native American name. And then she talked like this. How, pale face? Squaw over here. I do not use prepositions. How? I am not racist. How? How you think I racist?
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable.
Yeah, let me jump in. And if you remember last week, I mentioned we were watching Clash of the Titans, and we were looking at that movie, and the bad guy, he had the symbols and sort of that quote unquote native look, that's very typical of Hollywood, and this is another instance of that. And this is something, a legacy Hollywood really had, and it really, I don't know if it's fully gotten over. I'm not going to even comment on that, but this was very, very, very common, especially in these films. One way to indicate witchcraft and to indicate negative things, especially magic, especially spiritual stuff, was link it to what I call in my book othering, to link it to foreign places, to foreign cultures. Specifically, you see South Seas is one very common. Another one is Haiti. Big surprise here, given recent events. Very, very common, Haiti. And another one is Africa. So you'll often see, notice in that scene that he just put up here, you often find a black man hitting bongos in a lot of these movies. Very, very common. That's one of the cues. And then, of course, the henchman with the horns. I don't know if he's supposed to be the horn god or what he's supposed to be, but he's also has darker skin. So they would use. What happened? I missed it.
It's the dude with the mutton chops that go directly.
Oh, is that the guy? I didn't notice. So there he is. We don't know what that is. That's something. That's a choice. But you'll often see movies like this. They'll use symbolism from these countries, from these cultures, as well as black and brown bodies to indicate negative, stereotypical magic. It's that institutional racism you have in Hollywood, that is this legacy that is lived on. And so that's what you're seeing here. And it's horrific. And it's uncomfortable.
It was horrific.
Yeah, you have to take a shower after you watch a lot of movies, especially
I'm sorry to interrupt. No. My mother was Cherokee, and so I do have Native blood in me. And I think if I were to attend a seance, and the conductor of the seance starts speaking as if she's in some 1930s Western, I would pack up and leave. I would just walk out.
Yeah, it's horrific. All of it's horrific. The subtle stuff as well as the not so subtle stuff. It is. And they don't often use Native American, but that happens to some extent. It was very, very prolific in the early silent era, where they would use Native Americans. And then it switched over to the South Seas and Haiti and Africa. So it's really horrific. And you can trace that thread through my book on how that looks. You have to take a lot of showers after you watch some of these movies to clean your spirit of the horror.
I needed to smudge. I did.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, I get something's low budget. I get you can't afford costumes. I get they only took 5 days to write the script with 9 years research. But does the acting have to be that bad?
You don't like the screaming? The high priestess screaming?
Talks like this. What is that? I'm seance in ritual work, and we put our passion into our spells and working, but shut up.
Oh, and that's not even it. Like, I watch everything with subtitles, and our movies are no exception. And I watch this movie with subtitles. That's how I get quotes correct, or as correct as I can. And this movie, 90% of this movie, the subtitles were wrong because you couldn't even understand what they were saying. Like I could, but like they were talking either so fast or with such a weird voice that it was getting half of the words wrong. It was wild. Also, I would like to file a formal complaint because for a movie that is named Blood Orgy of the She-Devils, there was no blood orgies, and I feel duped by that, and I wish there was boobs and butts. Worst orgy ever. I'm ordering that immediately.
Yeah, that's
truly
were they
orgy. I mean, I have gone to supermarkets that had more sex appeal. Okay.
And there wasn't even that much blood. Like there wasn't even enough blood to have blood in the title. So the things that I was looking forward to in this movie, the blood, the orgy, the boobs and butts, none of it happened. But rocks bouncing off of people's faces did. So you know what? I can't.
And meanwhile, when she gets shot, this is how she dies.
Except the guy she doesn't, and she doesn't. Then she doesn't really die. She just turns into a cat that's never explained, and then gets right back up to doing things. And everybody had to hear those gunshots, right? Like nobody comes running in to figure out what's going on. That took me right out of the reality of this movie. I was into it until then, and then that's what took me out, Courtney. Like I couldn't do it.
You know what?
Then.
The part that took me out of the reality of it was when she was using the voodoo doll and she was stomping on it, and the guy was writhing around on the ground, and then she crushed his head with her heel, and he's bleeding from every orifice on his face, which finally, thank you, some blood, and he's laying there with his crushed in head, and he blinks. What? You're dead.
Well, on that topic, Courtney, there was another thing about the voodoo doll that irritated me.
The lizard.
She clearly takes the doll. I'm going to use Black Phillip. She clearly takes the doll, and she takes a pin and she sticks it into his right leg. And then it cuts and he grabs his left leg. I went, that's the wrong leg. Did no one see? It's the right leg.
I will admit I was a little bit impressed with some of the magical operations when she gets the guy to basically choke to death and she puts his doll in a big tub of water and then holds it down. That's like a good example of sympathetic magic. I don't think it would ever work that quickly, but I was like, this is his 5 years of research right here. He got this thing right. This one thing. That was maybe the only scene in the whole movie I was impressed with, but it did show some understanding of sympathetic magic, and I'll give them props for that.
Those were very cute puppets, though. They were puppets.
She worked really hard.
I just kept wanting to save the lizard. I don't think that they had the Humane Society back then that watching animals, because I'm sure that lizard is not alive any longer. And the death scenes, oh my God, the death scenes are straight out of a bad murder mystery. The live kind of murder mystery that I used to do, the really bad one. Oh. They had to work hard to be that bad.
Go ahead, Heather. Sorry.
I was going to say this whole film was shot in a castle in California. I forget the name of it. I'm not sure if you guys know, but almost all of it was shot inside this castle in California.
Castle Grayskull.
No, it was not Castle Grayskull. I did. I think that
was it Hearst Castle?
No, it wasn't Hearst. It starts with a C or an S. I can't remember the name of it. I can quickly look it up. But it was there's some castle in California, and he did the whole thing on one set.
Crap Show Castle. C and S. Crap Show Castle.
And when they went outside,
White Castle. Most of the scenes took place in the manager's office.
And when they were outside in a car, there was the pitch blackest outside. You never saw a road or a street or the sky or a city, or they're in the country, just a car pulled up in blackness.
Also, so she kills the guys from India. That's another weird thing, that these guys were from India and we're going to pay her in rupees, which I thought was really funny. And then we'll pay you when it's done. And then she kills them after they try to kill her, but she never collects the money, right? I mean, that's witchcraft 101. Get your money, honey.
Well, they were coming. She did not fulfill what they wanted. Like, who are they trying? She was trying to kill somebody for them, and it was
she killed the ambassador. She that's
there
the
you
one she
go.
put
That's right.
underwater. She
Right.
did her job, and then they were like, "We must kill her to tie up any loose ends."
That's
and then
She's too powerful for us. If she's that powerful, she can work against us.
Right? Yeah, and that brings up one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, because when he sends his bodyguard to kill her, the bodyguard says, "Let's go to work, baby." And I just thought that was so funny that I had to like write it down, make sure that I brought it in. But like, she should have just killed the bodyguard, and the other guy would have known, and then she would have gotten her money. But no, she just kills the other guy. Like, when I take that kind of contract work, I make sure I get paid, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I kill the spouse, and then the other spouse comes over and, pays me so that they don't get in trouble. That's good witchcraft.
And good business. She's not a businesswoman.
No, she's not a businesswoman, clearly.
And her coven of young women are not dancers.
Not dancers at all.
Not dancers. That is just when that one woman gets up, the solo dancer, and she's dancing around. I'm like, you have not even taken one day of dance lessons. I'm sad for you. Point that foot. When you pick that foot up, point that foot. What's going on?
The best thing though is when we do Witches Movie Coven live, though, we're all gonna do that dance for everybody in the audience.
We can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we'll approach.
Yeah. Yeah, Courtney's got it. There we go.
Some gyrating, some thrusting. That's it.
Yeah.
No skill whatsoever.
Yeah. Thumper's going to choreograph, apparently, so it'll be great.
Are we going to be wearing those costumes, though? Because,
I'm going to be wearing a Christmas tree, obviously. So.
That's true.
Oh, and her beginning outfit was such one of those, like, just a leotard. It was a dance, stretchy leotard I remember from those early 70s going into that whole thing. It's like, that's the weirdest witch outfit ever.
It was definitely something.
It was a movie. We watched it.
I will tell you, one of the things that drove me the craziest was, I lived in LA. I was in film. That was what I did. What drove me, one of the craziest, yes, the weird costumes from the 17th century, which was not, was the lighting, which was a little bit like, the lighting was a little like this the entire time. And I went, why? And then not only is the lighting like this, but then she does these weird spell things, and the light is even more covering her eyes. And I went, why? It's not that hard. Look how much better I look. The light is here. I don't have shadows behind me. You see? The light is in front of me. It weirded me out.
Choices were made.
If you want to watch another one with a high priestess similar to Mara, you can watch Blood Sabbath. I confuse them often when I was writing my book. I'm like, no, that's Blood Orgy. No, that's Blood Sabbath. But there is another. Well, there's tons of these. I mean, look at my book, the list for that chapter, and it's just one after the other. I've named some of them here, but if you enjoy this type of film, and there's plenty for you to enjoy, Blood Sabbath is one similar with a similar priestess, and I think that's the one where the high priestess walks around without a shirt on.
Oh.
Yes, and Tom Selleck is in Daughters of Satan. That was a big surprise, like Orson Welles in Necromancy, a big surprise. Or we saw the Satan School for Girls had some notable people in it. Sometimes famous actors do get into these B films. It's not unheard of.
Satan's School for Girls was made for TV, though, wasn't it? Like, it wasn't a real movie.
It was a real movie. It was just on television.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with Quentin Tarantino. If it's not released in theaters, isn't really a movie. The history nerd in me, though, I do really think they used Mastering Witchcraft, though. There were things from the movie that I felt like were in this book because
Yes.
this is not really a traditional witchcraft book in a lot of ways. So I will say they did a little bit of research. And then I love old 70s paperback books about witchcraft. This is from 71. And if you look at it, I mean, Sybil Leek, Louise Huebner, you know, were real witches that practice witchcraft like we would know it. But then Charles Manson, Anton LaVey, right? That's not what we do. But there were a lot of people in the 70s. It was all the same, and it all sort of blended together. And when you did read about it, you were led to believe that this was all connected, despite people like Raymond Buckland or Sybil Leek or Louise Huebner saying, no, what we do is very different from Charles Manson and Anton LaVey. But, you know, if you were just, you know, the average person, you'd go to the grocery store and you'd find this book on a spinner, and there you go. It's all connected in your brain from there on out.
Yep. And let me just tack on to that. Mastering Witchcraft is used in a lot of these films. It's very, very obvious. And Paul Hewson was actually a screenwriter in Hollywood. So it was very accessible, and he was there. Now, he's not listed ever, except for a TV show, and we might get to watch, that he actually wrote. He isn't ever listed as a consultant, unlike Raymond Buckland, who was really the very first notable person that was listed as a consultant for necromancy. But Paul Hewson's book was most certainly used in all of these, and it would have been very accessible given that he was a screenwriter in Hollywood at the time.
And it's from a major publisher. It's not even like a Llewellyn book. It was Putnam and Sons. You could have found it anywhere that you went to buy books. It was hugely influential.
Yes. And you can see it. We watched the movie Midnight Offerings, if you remember the teenage film. That's directly right out of that book. That's a very obvious one too. So
all right. So you guys are getting a gist of how we like the movie, just a little bit of hints here and there. Do we have anything? Oh, the costuming though. Oh my God.
Was that guy supposed to be a college student? Because at one point he talks about his professor, and you're like, wow, I mean, good for you going back to college later in life, I guess.
In the 70s, they looked older. Everyone looked older in the 70s.
True.
Yes, let's talk about those shoes.
Let's talk about those shoes. Yes.
I did not have a pair.
I did not have a pair, but I probably wanted one. I wanted one because I was looking at my mom's magazines. I wanted one. I was so close. Yeah, I do like the poppets. Yeah. Anyway, Courtney did not do quotes, but I hear that Jason did.
No.
Courtney's got a special thing to do.
Yeah, I didn't do quotes, but that doesn't mean I slacked off because I watched the whole movie.
Okay.
And in order to pay attention, I had to do something to process the movie, which was not quotes because I didn't like any of them. And I was listening to them.
Was it crying?
It was not. And it was not screaming. It wasn't screaming. Well, I would like to invite everyone on panel and in the comments to play a game of Never Have I Ever with me. So if you are unfamiliar with Never Have I Ever, you hold up 5 fingers. And if you have done the thing that I say, you put 1 finger down. Okay?
Okay.
So first one, never have I ever performed a racist rendition of an indigenous person in order to tell someone not to get on a plane.
Wait, which one's which?
So you put it down if you've never, right?
If you put it down if you have done that.
Oh, no, I haven't.
So please don't put one down, anyone on this panel.
Okay, beautiful. Next, never have I ever made screaming orgasm noises while channeling my ancestral aunt Jessica. Okay. Next one. Never have I ever put a voodoo doll in a jar with bugs, but I am taking notes. There you go. Right. I'm gonna try it, honestly. I was very interested in that part, not the lizard part, because I, like Patti, felt very uncomfortable about the lizard part. Never have I ever laughed as hard as when I was watching someone be stoned to death, or Never have I ever laughed as hard at someone being stoned to death as I did when multiple stones bounced off the lady's face. I think I put
have laughed harder, I think.
I don't think I have. Never have I ever seen a glowing green house and then had a calm collegiate discussion in the driveway before doing witchcraft to combat the witches. And lastly, never have I ever sat in front of a mirror in order to take myself to a past life 73 minutes before this life so I could unwatch this movie.
Very good.
I don't know who wins, but I think it's Richard-Lael.
So, I really do want to learn those dances. I know we can do them. I know we can do them.
Yeah. For sure.
The skipping. All right. So now we are moving on. Mr. Mankey, do we have a magnificent Mankey movie minute, perhaps?
I don't know if it's magnificent, but we've got something. So
Kind of like the movie.
Right.
yeah, like something. Like, is it a movie? Is it something else? I'm not sure. This movie reminded me of a lot of things, but when I was in high school, I was thinking back to that. I was always baffled by the idea that a negative times a negative equals a positive. I would ask my algebra teachers to explain this idea to me, and they always said it was too complicated. When I was in college, I tried to put the idea of a negative times a negative equals a positive to good use. There were times when I wouldn't pay a bill, and a bill is essentially negative money, right? Well, I wouldn't pay the bill, but multiplying it 6 times by letting the bill go unpaid for 6 months never resulted in a positive outcome. It all just ruined my credit score for many, many years. Over those many, many years, I've always hoped to stumble into a movie where a negative times a negative would equal a positive. Imagine something that is so bad, it suddenly becomes good. That is what I wanted Blood Orgy of the She-Devils to be. But just like an unpaid bill, the movie only got genuinely worse the more I watched it. I will give this movie some credit. It was bad in ways I did not expect any movie to be bad. I was horrified to watch a witch channel a Native American spirit, and for that Native American spirit to sound like Johnny Depp in the Lone Ranger movie. Hearing "You burn 'em hair in fire" and "Shiny bird across big water, you die in big water" were simply not on my bingo card today. And also, Native Americans knew what the ocean was 200 years ago. Jesus Christ, that was insulting. To the person who wrote this movie, just let me say, "White brave not speak truth," which is an actual line from this film. Speaking of white brave not speaking truth, while researching this film, I came across a quote from its director/screenwriter, Ted Mickles. "I did about a 3-year research on witchcraft. Everything from psychometry to the study of great witches of the past and the mysticisms that concern witches and sorcery. I wrote this after I went to seances. Usually when I write a script, I try to isolate myself from everything and everybody. But would you believe, after 3 years of research and notebooks full of material, I wrote the script in 5 days. It's the only movie I've ever made where I did not change one word, not one of the dialogue or the story. I didn't add or delete anything. I did it precisely as I wrote it." All right, Ted, I know I'm talking to your ghost here because you're dead. But did you really do a 3-year deep dive into witchcraft and accumulate notebooks full of material? It's okay if you didn't. It was the 70s, and I'm sure you were up to your ears in cocaine and crabs. I would have been. And you wrote this whole script in 5 days? Wow. Maybe you should have taken a bit more time with it. I know you had to get back to the crabs and cocaine. It's cool. As I said, I would have done the same. But you really should have deleted several words of dialogue and changed countless parts of the script. It also could have used a complete rewrite. I love how the end of the movie is just some old white guys and pray in front of a house, which results in everyone in the house dying. That's Oscar material right there. But perhaps the worst part of all of this, you in your hurry to get back to your cocaine and your paramours and the paramours that gave you crabs, you lied to me and your movie audiences. There were no orgies here. And when the head witch says, strip your garments, the garments were not stripped off. The only bigger lie in movie history is the never-ending story, which indeed had an ending. So what do we make of Blood Orgy of the She-Devils? Clearly not much. I'm just looking for someone to blame for the 90 minutes of life I lost earlier today. It's easy to blame Heather. She wrote the book that should have steered us clear of this abomination before the gods. But I think it was Richard-Lael's week to pick the movie. Fault also might lie at the feet of our producer, Rob, who suggested this film, or perhaps Patti, whose text response to a poster of the film was, oh my, how fun. Truth be told, there was no fun to be had, or any boobies either. No boobs and butts, no boobs and butts. There were absolutely no boobs and butts. Jason was disappointed.
Beautiful.
Yay!
That was a good one. Cocaine and crabs.
Mm.
Okay. We have one thing to do left. I don't know if there's any more discussion to be had. But we should, everybody out there, we need your opinion on it. We do hope you watched it. If you didn't watch it, you've almost watched it by listening to all of us.
Yeah.
Wands up, wands down.
Courtney, what is wrong with you?
I can't stop laughing about the rocks bouncing off her face. It saved it.
Is it worth
was
the
terrible.
other 73 minutes of angst and pain?
Yeah, because I think I was able to pay attention because I sat there the whole time going and trying to figure out what was happening. So sorry, I was on board.
Well, we've got up from Richard-Lael, up from Courtney, a neutral from a neutral from Heather.
Neutral, yeah.
I couldn't get past a lizard or a big BDSM guy beating a kid.
If it had some boobs and butts, maybe I would be down. But it lied to me. That is unforgivable. Unforgivable.
My neutral is kind of like, because as a film historian and as a witch film historian, and because I love watching these stupid 70s films, it's a up, but it's a terrible film, so it's a down for that. So I'm giving a neutral, but I would rather watch this than Clash of the Titans. I said it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, I would.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you, Richard-Lael.
Turning
Much
off my
better.
light in the summer does no good, so I will just put my thumb over my camera.
Okay, let's look at everybody else. I would have not. I'm glad I watched it, I must say. So we've got wands up and horns up. From Kelvin, thumbs down. Forgot today. Wands down, down, down. Buried so deeply it will never be dug up. Wands in celerity with Courtney. Okay, we can chat at the end, or instead of chat. Anyway, yeah, just what are we doing next week?
Willow, to honor the late great Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Wands up for Val Kilmer.
Wands up
for Val Kilmer.
Rest in peace. Beautiful, beautiful Val Kilmer. So Willow, everybody find it with Val Kilmer. And we have a few minutes left. Does anybody have anything coming up that they want to talk about?
I will be in Scotland next year. You can go to the Traceless Tours and then go to the Sacred Tours. And that is where I will be. I will be in Scotland in, I think, June or July. I'll let you know a little bit closer. I forgot.
Thank you. So look for Scotland next year. Anybody else?
I'm headed to Washington, D.C. tomorrow to talk about witchcraft and paganism in front of journalists, a crowd of journalists at a convention. So I'll be doing that tomorrow and Friday, and then back here. And Mystic South planning starts. Mystic South is in July. It's another big convention similar to the ones that just happened. Paganicon, where I was able to see Jason, and then Sacred Space, which was last weekend. So we'll be starting that. So if you're interested in Mystic South, go to the website, check it out, and start your plans to come to Atlanta in July. Yes, I said that. Atlanta in July.
The weather is fantastic from what I understand.
It is, especially when you have no air and heat like the first year we did Mystic South. So yes, it was fun, and it is hot here, but you're inside at the hotel and you can enjoy it thoroughly. The air conditioning, that is.
Mystic South is wonderful. And I was there the year the air conditioner didn't work, and I survived, though my hair was not what I wanted it to be.
I remember. I remember you coming to me in a frantic panic.
Does it go straight?
We have no
more curly.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It just goes crazy. Like it just goes whoop. Like
that's what mine does too.
Yeah. It was a sight to see. It was terrifying. Not nearly as terrifying though as Blood Orgy of the She Devils, but that guy's gonna haunt dreams. Oh, I forgot one joke I was gonna say. Put that picture back up, Rob, if you can. I've always wondered who the father of the QAnon shaman was, and there he is.
That's what he was.
Yeah, there he is. He's right in the background.
Right there.
If you like jokes like that and enjoy me, you can also see me at the Spring Mysteries in Seattle, Washington in 2 weeks over Easter weekend, which starting on the 16th of April. And then in May, on the 10th, I will be with friend of the show and auxiliary Coven member, Thumper Forge, at the Austin Witch Fest, where we will be doing a dance. Austin Witch Fest. 2,000 witches in Texas. Uh-oh, what did I miss? Oh, no.
2,000 what's in Texas?
Witches dancing like that? I'm gonna go back to my whiskey. I'm done.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'll be talking then.
Big book releases coming up from Llewellyn. We have two big book releases. You guys should talk about that.
Yes, look at that Dollcraft. You could make puppets just like the ones that can kill leaders of whatever. I've never been as that pretty, but they have never been that evil. So yes, June or first week of June, Dollcraft. I'm so honored, and Heather did the foreword, and she's my Llewellyn person, and I'm so excited. Thank you.
And Jason's. We got two.
Oh, yeah, and then High Priest, the biography of Raymond Buckland. I pimped that at the beginning of the show.
I know, but it came up on the screen.
There's a point now, though. Like, it just, just feels evil to talk about it that much. But yeah, look at that. Look at that glow around the book. I spent 2 years of my life writing this book. Please.
And then 5 days writing the script.
Right. 5 days. Then I spent 5 days writing the book and it shows.
For all that research. That's good.
Yeah.
If anybody's near Scottsdale, I'm going to be in Scottsdale April 10th at the it's kind of a women's empowerment thing at Neiman Marcus in Scottsdale. That should be fun. And then I'm headed off the next day to Midwest Metaparacon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which should be fun. And then I'm doing an online thing with my friend Rod Thompson from Ghost Finders. We're doing a little reconnecting online gallery. We've always been doing them live. That's our first time. And then I'm headed off to Hickory, North Carolina for a weekend at my friend's shop, Crescent Moon. So lots coming up. So for all of us, we know we leave you speechless here with the brilliant entertainment we give you. So just go to our websites, follow us. Oh yeah, I have a ghost event. I have a couple new shows. One I'll tell you about. I've one that I won't tell you about. It's on the 13th. Filthy Treasures. You could see the scary side of Patti. Electra side, Filthy Treasures on Discovery. And the very next week, finally, these ones I've been shooting of ghost adventures. This is a good one, though, if you like Houdini. And we went to conjure Houdini at the Winchester Mystery House, where Houdini stayed for an entire month to try to debunk it because he was a debunker. And after he stayed there for a tiny month, he never got big on debunking. Just saying. We had his one living relative in the whole world, one blood relative left, and it was a pretty crazy one. That's on the 23rd, also on Discovery. So, and I have next week a one we just shot at Suicide Bridge. Yes, last night, the night before last, all night, on my overnight crew, and that we got the spirit. They were trying to learn to do it without equipment, but I was trying to like mediumship and just to intuition, but the equipment said people's names. It called me a witch medium. It was
What medium?
Witch medium. So anyway, that I think is going to come out next weekend on YouTube with overnight. So come see all of Overnight with Elton Castay. Thank you, beautiful producer in the background. So lots of fun stuff. And everybody get your merch. You can get t-shirts like Worst Orgy Ever. And all these beautiful quotes from Courtney. You could get a Richard-Lael pillow. You could get I wish I wore t-shirts because
I'm wearing the sweatshirt version of that right now. Hold on. I don't know if you can see it. Let me try, but it says it on the back.
It does. It is beautiful. So just go to mysterycontrol.com and you could get merch, including, I think we can get Black Phillips. You can get Bling Phillips. You could have some amazing jewelry for you and your goat to share. So join us here next week, same time, same channel, same place. And we have one last thing to do. 1, 2, 3.